bloom in spring. Tell me who gives the air that you breathe. Ooh. Everything that you need he will provide, so you may as well come on and give him a try. 'Cause he's awesome. Ooh, he's awesome. He's awesome. What would I do without him? Couldn't make a move without him. I don't wanna be without him. He's awesome.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to ZMR Ministries. I am Pastor Z, and thank you for joining me on another Tuesday where y'all know we talk about what? EntrepreKNEWWHAT. We highlight an entrepreneur every month. We put them in the spotlight. They talk about their business, how they got started, what they're learning along the way, their future goals, what they're aspiring to be. But they also give you the tools that you need for those who want to be an entrepreneur. And if you're already an entrepreneur, they may give you tools that you didn't know about, that you're unaware of, that can help you be more successful. Today's guest and this month's spotlight is on an entrepreneur. His name is Laterras R. Whitfield. How you doing, Laterras?
Listen, I like the name of that, EntrepreKNEWWHAT.
EntrepreKNEWWHAT?
I like that. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you for being here. So, of course, we want to talk about you being an entrepreneur. Pretty much, you know how we say, I don't work for nobody but me.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. What's your profession? Or tell them. I know. So tell everybody else.
So it just depends on what. I'm a Jamaican. I feel like I'm Jamaican because I have all kind of jobs. I have a clothing line called Blazing. I'm a host of a podcast called Dear Future Wifey. I have a production company, Whitfield Films, and I moonlight as a playwright from time to time when people hire me to direct and produce plays and whatnot. So that's my claim to fame, was a playwright producer.
So how did you get started?
I got started when I was fired from my job.
Okay.
I was fired from my job in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
I was working as an account rep for a local newspaper in Dallas, and I said, you know what? I don't want people to have control over my future like that. So I put all my time, energy, and resources into producing my first national play. So
how big does your background play when it comes to, being an entrepreneur, making that decision to work for yourself? Because, we are often shaped by our background and our surroundings. Is that true for you?
I think it is because I grew up in the hood. So
okay.
In the hood, so everybody was hustling in the hood, and so I just decided to make my hustle legal. So instead of selling drugs like what I was accustomed to seeing growing up, I said, I'm gonna bet on myself, and I'm gonna let my entrepreneurial endeavors with my passion in Christ and then the arts become the drug of my choice. Okay. And so I sold that.
So you mentioned you got fired from your job.
Yes.
Was that the first time you realized that corporate America is just not for me?
Pretty much, because I loved the job. I was working at a newspaper, and I was doing my entrepreneurial stuff. At that time, it wasn't even entrepreneurial; it was more of a hobby. Right. I was acting in local theater productions and community theater, and then that began to take precedence, according to my boss, over my work duties. So they gave me an ultimatum. Well, actually, they tried to fire me, and I said, no, they told me to quit. They said, why don't you resign? I said, no, if I resign, I won't get that good old unemployment.
Well,
come on, somebody.
Come on, tax money.
Let me get that. So they said, all right, and I said, y'all can fire me. They said, okay, well, today will be your last day here. And I said, all right, and I'm good with that. And so they let me go, and I started pursuing I never went back. I never worked again after that moment, and that was in 2002.
So was that the determining factor? Because, people get fired from their jobs all the time, and they still don't go into entrepreneurship, especially the ones that want to, they aspire to, they have a desire to do that. Right. What was the determining factor for you to say, you know what, I got fired, but I'm not going back?
Well, my boss said something very interesting to me. He said, look, it looks like you're having more joy, as I was doing community theater, so I would pop up in the Metro newspaper. And so he was like, I'm seeing you popping up with, on the front page of the Metro newspaper acting. It looks like this is what you're supposed to do. And but the fear was that community theater, you wouldn't make no money. You wouldn't make no money. Right. And so I couldn't have done that from to be able to support my livelihood. But I started researching and studying about how in the world could I take my passion and actually create a product out of it. And so you start seeing a lot of those national plays that were touring across the country, and I knew that I could add something to that market, and so I just started pursuing it.
So you know that was the beginning of the process, right? Okay. So when you made that decision, because you guys just heard him say he researched.
Yeah, I researched. I'm gonna study to show myself.
Come on, Second Timothy.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. You got to. At the end of the day, you'll be mad at God for certain things not happening, but it was you. It was your fault. You know.
Okay, so you've been fired.
Right.
You said you did your research. What's the first step to somebody else? You know, they may not have gotten fired, but they may have made a conscious decision. You know what? I'm going to leave my job.
Right.
This is now going to become my livelihood. What's their first step?
Research. So you can't get past research.
Right.
Because if whether you're gonna start a t-shirt business, make candles, or sell cupcakes out the back of your car, you're gonna have to do research to find out what the market analysis is. Sometimes we have ideas that may not be the best of ideas. You may say, I want to go sell, it's almost like selling snow cones in the wintertime. Like, it's like, does that make sense? No, I'm gonna do something different. Because normally people don't buy snow cones in the wintertime, because one day I wanted a snow cone, but it was in the wintertime. There's a reason why.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There's a reason why. You think you're gonna upset the market with some new trend, but there's a reason why. So it's those type of things that you need to research, find what the market is, find out what the cost of goods are, whether you decide to buy it, if you're going to buy something from wholesale and flip it. You just got to do a lot of research.
Right. So you make the big move. They do their research. That's the first step. What's after that? Because now you're thinking about, okay, I'm making a t-shirt business or a podcast or whatever it is. Now I got to get equipment. Now I gotta, probably get funding because I don't have the funding, because if they're not working, where does the money come from?
The first thing I tell people to do before you go do anything, the first thing you should always buy is the name of it. So if you had some idea and this drop it like it's hot for Jesus.com, you need to go buy the domain name. Buy the domain. Drop it like it's hot for Jesus.com. Go buy that domain name. That's the cheapest investment you can buy if you go to GoDaddy and buy that domain name for about $16 or whatever. Get the domain name. That's your online real estate.
Right.
Because you'll have an idea for something, and then you go, "Ooh, I got this idea," and then you start trying to brand it and build it. Somebody else owns a domain name. Somebody else owns the social media handles. You're failing at that point.
Right.
You're building something that you're going to market, and when people look it up, it's going to pull up everybody else's business. So, and don't be married to the name until you can actually own that name.
Right.
So brainstorm. Hey, this is the name I want. Go see who's using those handles. If they're not being used, snatch them up real quick. I own like 60, about 70 something domain names.
Right.
Every time I get an idea, I'll be like, oh, let me go buy this.
Ownership, y'all.
Yeah, just go buy a little domain at like $9 or something. Last week I spent $1,800 on a domain name because I wanted it, because I want to brand with Dear Future Wifey. I didn't own DearFutureWife.com.
Right.
And so I said, let me go buy that. So this big company owned it. But it cost me $1,800 to buy it, and I just bought it.
So you gotta be willing to invest in yourself. One thing that I learned early on, some years ago when I decided, I want to work for myself. And you do reach out to people and you're like, okay, where can I get this funding? I mean, and I wasn't even asking for money. I was just saying, help me, like even with information. And one thing that I learned is no one is willing to bet on you if you're not willing to bet on yourself, because the first thing they're going to ask you what are you doing? What have you gotten? Let me see what you're working with already. And if you're saying, well, I haven't gotten anything, then why would I want to invest?
Waste my time to put some money behind you and you won't even bet on yourself. It don't make sense.
Exactly. So what was the advantage of making that step to say, I'm not working a 9 to 5. I'm not gonna be a cage bird. Not saying that you are, but for creatives, that's difficult.
I'm gonna tell people it's not as glamorous as it may seem. Like working for yourself isn't really glamorous. It's because you're gonna work harder for yourself than you ever had to do for somebody else. Like if someone, and it's times in my office I work all night. I fall asleep for a couple hours, get back up, work again. Fall asleep, work. It's like, well, I would never do that working in corporate America like that. And then you got to be able to learn. This is a beautiful scripture that says, learn how to abase and how to abound.
Right.
So you got to be able to be in season and off season to know, I I'm in season right now, so I can't go spend and ball out of control, which is something I had to learn. I was like, oh, I'm making all this money right now, and I was spending it like it was going to last forever.
Right.
And then I go, oh, this is what the Bible says: 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. This is my famine season. And so you got to be wise enough to say, let me store up some money and learn how to function. It's a lot of companies that went, bankrupt, closed down during the pandemic.
Right.
The pandemic really showed people what they were made out of. Major Fortune 500 companies that just closed up shop. And I was like, how in the world did this happen?
Because they were operating for the now.
Yes, yes. And so, and everything is changing. People learning more and more stuff to deal with virtually. It's crazy because a lot of companies that would never even have thought for a second to allow you to work from home, now people are working from home.
Right.
So everything just shifted. Everything reinvented itself. But one thing that I say you have to always learn is to learn to base and hunt it down. Learn to finagle yourself through different seasons and be okay. Have a teachable spirit.
Yes.
I've become, if you don't watch shows like the Shark Tank, like it's stuff like Shark Tank that teaches you a lot about business. Watch it. There's a lot of free resources out there. Read stuff. Go to YouTube videos. Watch all kind of stuff about what it is, and then become an expert in your business.
Right.
Don't just watch everything. Find out what it is that you do and watch what other people in your industry are doing. A lot of times people get into this, oh, I don't want to be like them. I don't want to be like them. You don't even know that you 90% like them because you haven't even watched their stuff. So you think you're so different instead of taking the time to go watch what they're doing and go, I kind of like what they're doing. Ooh, they can adjust this a little bit better. I know how to perfect that. I'm better at that than they are in this. So they're better at marketing than me. So it's you can always learn from everybody. So make sure you have a teachable spirit.
So of course, with being teachable, when you think about marketing yourself, and because he just mentioned a lot of Fortune 500 companies are no longer here. And some of them have been around for years.
Ever.
And it's like, how do you allow something like a pandemic?
For a couple of months.
Right.
Ain't been a whole year.
Right.
You shut down the first 3 months.
And see, the thing that we've been discussing, just in our private conversations is, if there's any other opportune time to do something, it's now. Why is that?
Because it's the variable is there. There's no rules. There's no rules. Everybody's trying to figure it out. You get a lot of grace in this period because everybody's trying to figure it out. One thing that I found that more people are launching podcasts during the pandemic than any other year because people have a lot of time at home. If you go try to buy certain camera equipment and podcast equipment, it was a lot of cameras that I would recommend to my clients. They were sold out for months because everybody's saying everything is going virtual, everything is on Zoom and all the other stuff. So those type of stuff has been highly sought after. So it's so great in this season right now because there's a grace period that's taking place, and I believe that God is just upset some stuff and be like, all right, whatever it is now, do it. And it shows you that you can't be so codependent on your 9 to 5 because that is subject to change. I see so many people getting furloughed. You'll look up and it'll be like, oh, American Airlines just furloughed thousands of employees.
Disney.
Yeah, Disney just furloughed. What did Disney just do? Some crazy kind of thousand people, 40,000 or something? I said, what? And so now it's a season of saying, okay, God, I put all my bread and butter into this company. What is it that you have for me?
Right.
And you can still go get your 9 to 5, but always keep a side hustle. I believe in keeping a side hustle until that side hustle begins to be your bread and butter. And so everything is subject to change. Just be optimistic because this is a season to be there.
So we understand discerning the moment.
Yes.
Knowing when to jump ship, knowing when to say, this door is closed. And sometimes we don't have the strength to do it, so God will close the door for us.
Yes.
How are they able to recognize that?
When you start looking at, you got to get into a place of quietness with God. So God can't speak to you if you're taking in all this noise from everywhere else. And you got to just get to this alone place in God and just get to this place of solemnness with God and say, God, listen, what is that you will have me to do? Whether you got to go and fast, because fasting really, really gets you into alignment with God because you're putting your flesh under subjection. But what it is that you got to get to the point to where you really want to hear God, and God will clearly direct your path. When God had me launch my podcast, I was complaining to God in the month of March, towards the end of March, and they just hit this shelter in place. I was about to launch this web series where I was going to do these fun little videos, and then they said, all right, shelter in place, and I just did 2 episodes. It's called the Rona Chronicles, and then I said, man, this is messed up. Like I was just it started getting good, and it just shut down everything. And then I said, God, I have no clients. One of the school districts I work with, they owed me like a check for like $24,000, and I was like, I don't even know if they're going to end up doing the project now because of the coronavirus and all that. And then God said, you've been talking about wanting to do this podcast, do the podcast. I said, if I have no customers in this, he said, make you your customer.
Right.
And I said, okay, God, I hear you. And I had nothing but time on my hands, so I launched my podcast. Well, I launched it April the 15th. Now it came September. I had 20,000 subscribers. But had I not did that, if I waited, procrastinated, the season of the rebuilding moment would have started taking place in September. And now I have to wait till December or January. It may not even hit the 20,000 that quick because seasonal stuff. Right. You got to listen to God, and when God tells you to do something, you do it.
And you got to be willing to bet on yourself.
1,000%.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk rewards and challenges. What are the challenges with pursuing entrepreneurship, and what are the rewards, or what can the rewards be?
I'll start with the rewards first.
Okay.
Freedom. It's the freedom and the knowing that you are truly fulfilling what it is that you have been impassioned to do.
Right.
So that's the greatest rewards to say, I get to do what I enjoy. I get to do what I love. And everybody's not built for entrepreneurship. Let's get to that. If you don't have a work ethic to get up when you don't want to get up, if you don't have a work ethic to handle marketing or get out there and you don't even want to learn or whatever, you just think somebody's supposed to come and just hand you stuff, working 9 to 5, you know what you're going to get every week or bi-weekly or monthly or whatever your pay structure is, you're not built for it.
Right.
If you have the desire to want more and you have a hustle about you and you grind, and you say, this is what I want, and no matter how many no's I get, I'm going to keep on pushing. Entrepreneurship is for you, because you're going to hear a bunch of no's. You hear a bunch of no's whether you try to launch whatever it is, and you talk to your family member and tell them to support you, and they go, I don't want that. And you're like, see, they hate us. No, everybody ain't haters. Everybody don't have to buy what you're selling.
Right. Everybody
doesn't have to buy it. Some people just don't have the money, and some people have a choice to determine or decide what they want to spend their money on. That's their free choice. That's their hard-earned money. So be able to take no without having your feelings hurt, without getting mad and no longer going to the family functions because they didn't buy your camera.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Be okay with that.
Right.
That's the reward is the peace of mind. The challenges is, like I said, being able to accept no, not understand. You may not have a set amount of what you're going to make weekly or monthly. You don't even know how to budget because you don't even know how much you're going to make that over that course of time. With your 9 to 5, you know, if you got paid hourly, I do 40 hours, I make this, your checks are the same. Entrepreneurship, I don't think my check has ever been the same, ever.
Right.
Ever. I've been an entrepreneur for 18 years, and I have never seen the same check monthly. It just doesn't happen. And so that's the thing, to be able to try to budget the unknown account balance. That's one of the challenges. The challenges is just really being consistent and encouraging yourself. There's a beautiful song I heard growing up, is that sometimes you have to encourage yourself.
Right.
Because sometimes you won't have people applying for you. You may not have somebody rooting for you to move on. And you got to wake up and say, God, all right, I'm going to go ahead and do this. Whatever it is that God placed in your heart, you have to encourage yourself to keep pushing forward.
So when we take the plunge, we call it a plunge of entrepreneurship, and you have people who are very successful at it, then you have people who fail at it. When we speak in terms of plan Bs, is that dangerous or is it wisdom?
I think it's to each his own. Because I used to think about that. I was like, do I have a plan B? You hear people say, nah, if you have a plan B, you already said that will fail.
Right.
And I go, I don't want to answer that. I just know I never had a plan B.
Right.
Because I had whatever it is that I don't know if I wasn't wise enough to have a plan B, to be honest with you. But I think it's to each his own. Some people are more logical thinkers. So for those logical thinkers, some people may have retirements. I didn't have a retirement.
Right.
So that's their plan B. Their plan B maybe if every push comes to shove, I got a degree in XYZ, I can always go back to that job. And they may not ever go back to that job, but they know that their degree afforded them the opportunity to go back to that job. Me, I don't have a degree. I don't have no plan B. All I have, my plan B is another entrepreneurial endeavor.
Right.
So I love building something out of my brain and watching it come to fruition that my plan Bs are just another entrepreneurial endeavor.
Okay, so when you're talking to people who have a plan B, let me say this. I remember Eddie Murphy. I was listening to one of his stand-up years ago, and he said he remembered when he told his parents, "I'm gonna be a comedian," and they said, "Okay, son. Well, what's your backup plan?"
Yep.
And he said, "I don't have one. Either I'm gonna be a comedian or I'm gonna be homeless." And so, some people may listen to that, especially those who are not creatives. They may listen to that and say, "Well, that's stupid. That's not logical. You better have a backup plan. I'm not gonna be homeless."
Until you become Eddie Murphy, you say it made a whole lot of sense.
Exactly. And so it gives you hope, but everyone don't operate in that same level of faith. So what can you tell those who are still on the fence? Like, I want to take the jump, but I don't want to take the jump.
Jump. Do it afraid. Like
Right.
jump. I believe in jumping. We have this beautiful thing called life. If I look at what I did at 22, and I'm 42. Like, I don't even remember some of the dumb decisions I made at 22, 23, 18, 19. Unless they were really, really big dumb decisions. But some of that little stuff like a job, like that is subject to change. If you have, now I say that you have to be a little bit more cautious based upon the lifestyle that you built for yourself. Meaning, if I'm a married man and I got 3 kids, I can't come home and tell my wife I'm going to leave this 6-figure job and say, you know what, I'm going to go build a band. I'm going to start doing these things. Yeah, but she may not be there. She was like, baby, you know what I'm saying?
That ain't gonna work for me.
That's not going to work. You're like, so you ain't supporting me. God told me to do this. It just don't make logical sense. So when we use logic, we say, listen, still do your 9 to 5. Work your 9 to 5. On the weekends, do your music ambitions. As you begin to work your music ambitions, the more you start getting booked and start doing concerts, and now you may become a big old huge band to where now you're making more money with your band than you ever did with your 9 to 5. So now you can come tell your wife, hey, listen, I made $150,000 touring with the band. I want to spend more time with the family, so I got to leave this 9 to 5. Can I still do this? She's like, shoot, I don't care.
Because it makes sense.
It makes sense. But if I sat back, so I'm going to leave all this money to do this, we got 3 kids, they all, it's just, use wisdom. The Bible said all you're getting, get wisdom and understanding. So get it. So the reality is that, so as a single person, you have 100% autonomy to do whatever you want to do. You ain't got to ask nobody. I don't have to ask nobody nothing. When I tell you I love that, I don't have to ask nobody. I want to go buy a camera.
That's why he got a dear future wife.
That's why I got a dear future wife. I can get what I want to. Can you imagine me having a girlfriend talking, I'm going to do a podcast called Dear Future Wife? She'd be like, what are you doing? What you do? I'm your wife. You ain't even made me your wife. I'll be like, listen, I'm still trying to figure out what you're, like, it's a whole argument, it's a whole lot of, then I had these pretty women on my set, we doing this, they gonna be asking all the questions, what you like her, all that. I'm interviewing different people. I'm talking about, you start losing the freedom of what it is that you've been called to do. And then that's a season. I'm not gonna always have a podcast called Dear Future Wifey, because I'm gonna get married. And so then what? So now I'll reinvent it for something else.
But you don't have to. I mean, you can still keep it because you can talk to people who are still in that zone of their future wifey, whether they looking for a wife or they trying to become one.
Well, the way I set my podcast up is to be, it's an introspective thing. It's me going on a journey. So I already have plans on my exit strategy. The podcast will still be living, but I have an exit strategy.
Okay.
So I thought about that, and then I'll have a whole other podcast that I've already started buying domain names for.
So it's staying ahead of the game.
Always.
So what inspires you, Laterras?
I look at life. I get so inspired by my own brain. Like I go, God, why am I here? What am I supposed to do on this earth? How can I impact the nation in a way that only I can do it? And so God downloads that stuff to me and be like, all right, do this. And it's always me acting authentically who I am. Like I exist with being who I am, and that's why I flourish the most. So even on my podcast, I keep it 1,000% lit. Like it's, I'm a Christian guy, but I don't try to subscribe to what the church tells me I'm supposed to say or do. I'm uncovering some stuff. I'm trying to unlearn some unhealthy things that I may have learned in the church. You know, I'm like, okay, we say this, but what does that really mean? You know what I'm saying? And so, because before I got married, I said I'll never ever get a divorce. I got married. Also, before I got married, I said I'll never ever cheat on my wife. I did both of those things. So, and this is me as a Christian man. So I had to go and say, what was broken inside of me before I got married that allowed me to do the two things I said I would never ever do. And so that's me living authentic. But if I wasn't authentic, I'd be like, I'll just go duplicate the same mistake in the next marriage. And so when I say to thine own self be true, whatever it is that you desire, don't try to take a profession that you know you don't like doing. You just see that other people are making money from it, and you say, well, I can make money doing that. And it don't make sense. Like I heard someone talking about, it was funny because Phaedra, I was watching an episode of The Housewives of Atlanta years ago, and she said, what? They make a bunch of money in the funeral business? So she went and opened up one. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, but what if you can't stand to look at dead people? Why are you going to go open that up? She didn't, you know, she was unbothered by that. But if that's not something I could do. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing in me that can open up a funeral home. You know what I'm saying? But I said, ooh, Phaedra making a bunch of money, I'm going to go do it. And so you start doing stuff. To thine own self be true. Whatever it is that you'll do without making $1 from it, do that. And that's where God's going.
And that's how you know it's your passion.
100%.
So what are your future goals? And how do you plan for the future as an entrepreneur? Because especially something like a pandemic, because you have people who are building businesses out of the pandemic. And you know, they're not certain that it's gonna last past the pandemic. And then you have people who had businesses before the pandemic and they never considered themselves, you know, out of business beforehand. So what is your future plans, and how do you tell someone to plan for the future as an entrepreneur?
One thing I say, the way you plan is just from a financial standpoint. From a financial standpoint, get enough nest eggs saved. So you go get your little nest egg and say, I can't, there's a saying that says, eat what you kill. But the reality is I can't eat it right now. Some stuff I gotta store it up, put it in the freezer for a little bit. And so what I'm trying to do, which is something I'm trying to learn from my past, is not to live like it's gonna be there forever. And so, and I use my podcast as an example of it, is that I'm growing my podcast, and the money that I'm making from the monetization from ads running, I will only use that to pay for what the podcast needs. I ain't gonna try to pay my bills with it. I'm not gonna do that. So now I'm gonna move into merchandising on the podcast. So I will use the money that I made from that to buy the merchandising to then make money from it. But to always know that everything is subject to change. To plan for a pandemic, I don't even know how you could plan for that. Because no one, some of the most brilliant minds, the whole country and the whole world is trying to figure out how to navigate towards that, or navigate through that. It's kind of hard to do that, but one thing that I always say is don't let a pandemic take away your mental stability. Because when I say everything is subject to change, so if you put all your faith into whatever it is, then when whatever it is changes, now your faith is falling. I put my faith in God, so no matter what happens, my constant is God. So whether I'm doing a podcast, whether I'm doing a national play, whether I'm doing a t-shirt line, because I had seasons where I was making a whole bunch of money from t-shirts, and then I stopped doing that. And my clothing brand, I stopped doing that and shifted to something else. And so when you start learning how to not be so married to whatever it is, you remember the brand Ed Hardy? Ed Hardy was Ed Hardy was built to be a burnout brand. And what Ed Hardy was, they said, we're going to create a brand. They did this, and I did the research on it. They created the brand to make as much money and get as much market share as possible, and then sell it off. So what Ed Hardy used to cost, you can go to Walmart, wherever little store, you go buy a little Ed Hardy doggone sweater that could have cost $150, then you're going to get it for $19.99. But it was set up to just go make as much money as humanly possible to be a burnout brand. And so it will never be a Louis Vuitton. It will never be like some of the big brands that never ever go on sale. Like you ain't gonna never see Louis Vuitton purse go on sale because they recognize the value, and withstand the test of times. So it's just, you gotta know what you're building, know what the legacy of that is, and build it to last. If you want it to last, or build it to burn out. Like masks. I watch people launch businesses on masks. They're making all these custom masks. Well, hopefully there'll be a time where we no longer need masks. So what you need to do is just sell as many of those as humanly possible. Make sure that your profit is really great on that. Make a bunch of money off of it, and then move it to something else.
How important is multiple streams of income?
Oh, it's
you just said something that makes so much sense, because I've seen a lot of companies who, or not even companies, but people, you know, who know how to sew. They made this mask. I was reading one girl's story when I was in Atlanta, and she made this mask, and she ended up in the, you know, in the magazines, and she was selling them globally, and she was like, I've become a millionaire literally just from doing masks. But I'm like, when the pandemic is over,
what you gonna do?
What's next? So that's why I'm asking about the multiple streams of income. How important is that?
It's huge, because it's like I was talking about with the podcast, is that I got my revenue that I'm making off the podcast. I'm gonna start creating other stuff. I'm gonna get a brand manager where I start getting not just the AdSense money that I make for them running commercials on YouTube, but I'll go out and sell my own ad, partner with a major company, say they pay me $10,000 a month, to now Dear Future Wife is presented by whatever brand, at David's Bridal, that type of stuff, and they go, all right, we're gonna give you X amount of money, drop these commercials throughout. Boom, that's great. So then I go do a contract with them for a year, $120,000, I'm good, you know what I'm saying? So it's all these little things that you can do to say, let me get this money over here, I'm gonna work on this, let me get my merchandising over here, let me work on that, and then as you continue to brand stuff, then other people may say, hey, we wanna license this out for you, which is all these trademarks and stuff that I'm getting around my brand. But then they say, let's license out this type of stuff from you, and hey, let's get this type of product, and let's put your name on it. All kind of stuff that I have that's been planned, been in talks with a trademark attorney to launch a lot of different stuff with it. But you gotta think like that, or you build it huge, and you never did receive the benefit of it. You just said, I had a podcast, I got 1 million subscribers, and that's it.
So it seems like you have it all figured out.
Oh yeah,
right?
I've been working.
So what is the blueprint to success? Or is there a blueprint? Because you can talk to your blue in the face and tell people how to do something, and they can follow your exact steps and still not be successful.
Right.
So what is the blueprint? Does it even exist?
I don't think there's a blueprint, because if it is, everybody will be successful.
Right.
And you hear people make it, it's so many different variables to it. You know, it's like you'll hear somebody be like, yeah, like you said, the lady made some masks. And then I can tell you my homegirl Shaniqua has been doing masks, and her mask may look better than other girl masks, and she only sold 5 of them. You know what I'm saying? Now she stopped doing it after the first 2 weeks of the pandemic. So it's all about, I don't know the answer to that. Even when they talk about how do you make a video go viral.
Right.
I had a video that got 27 million views on Facebook. I haven't done it again. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't even know, you can't make that happen.
Right.
And then the video was me actually helping this homeless guy, and we did this makeover on him. And it was this web series I did called Homeless Life. I would go out and do random acts of kindness for the homeless. And I was like, wow, this video, yeah. And it went viral, took off. Then I said, okay, my other video where I take 30 homeless women out on a date on Valentine's Day, oh, if that got 27, that's gonna get 40.
Right.
No, 1,200. You know what I'm saying? You be you just don't know. Like, you just have no idea.
And see, and that's the downfall, because we live in an era of social media where everybody is trying to get famous and
facts.
rich
Facts.
off of a viral video. So you're chasing a fad.
Yep.
That and I know, you know, technology and all that is gonna evolve even more. But the life of social media, we never know where it's going to peak and when it's going to go away. And so if you built this life on, I'm gonna go viral, I have to go viral, I have to be Instagram famous, Facebook famous, you know, YouTube famous, whatever it is, it's not lasting.
Nah.
It's not lasting. So here's the big question that we ask every Tuesday, and it's also the title of our segment, EntrepreKNEWWHAT? What do you wish you would have known before becoming an entrepreneur?
That it's, and a lot of stuff I've always known, because I used to study this stuff. One of the things that I have to plan for retirement. That's the one thing I wish I'd known. I'm still trying to grasp that, you know what I'm saying? To be able to say, this is how much because I don't have no retirement. I have to build my own retirement. If not, you'll see me still doing the same stuff, and I'm 80 years old, still doing the same stuff because I have to work. And so I have to find an exit strategy. I got to be able to build some type of reserve to be able to say, I'm building this for my future. This is not for me right now at 42. This is me at 82. So I have to build that. So one thing I wish I knew early on, which I could have started earlier, is to save up or build whatever that is for the future. That's my main thing.
So so we know retirement is yours. What do you think the most important thing for our aspiring entrepreneurs and those who are already entrepreneurs? What can you tell them?
To focus a lot on branding and marketing. I used to work at the Dallas Morning News, and when the 9/11 hit, a lot of companies stopped marketing. Like I was over travel and tourism, so I made my sales off of people who were doing stuff. Yeah, on travel and tourism. So they came to me and they said, I was talking to my boss one day, and I said, listen, a lot of the people are not advertising in the newspaper no more because I'm over travel and tourism. He said, you need to tell them that Coca-Cola never stops advertising. And I said, what does that mean? They said, you can't afford to stop advertising. Right. If you stop advertising, even when people was getting laid off at the Dallas Morning News, sales never went anywhere. They kept sales there. They'll fire everybody else, but the salespeople are the lifeblood of the company. And so, and that when you recognize that from sales and marketing, and you say, listen, as a brand, whether you're the brand, whether you're a beautician, whether you're a barber, whether you got a product that you're marketing, you cannot afford to not market.
Right.
So I spend money on marketing. I'll be like, all right, let me go buy this little Facebook ad. Let me drop about $50 and let it see what it's going to do. Let me get whatever it is on Instagram. Let me market this. Let me go set up a booth at a trade show. Right. That was around before the pandemic. Find ways to get yourself out in front of the public, because if people don't see you, they can't buy you.
Invest in yourself.
100%.
At the end of the day, you have to be willing to. But I remember I would go to all of these networking events.
Yes.
You know, as an actress, and you get your cards made, and you go get your photo shoot done. And I would run into people who were always looking for a photographer to find them. You know, they would show up at these plays or whatever it was, and they were trying to be noticed. And I started paying attention to stuff, and I said, you know what? It's not beneficial for me to do it that way.
Yeah.
Let me put myself out there. I started paying for my own photo shoot.
There it is.
I got my own cards.
Yeah.
You know, I started setting myself up where I look professional. I didn't wait to build a profile. I was like, let me build it.
Yeah.
And then whenever I would go to these networking events or meet somebody, they were impressed.
Yes.
Like, oh, who paid for this? I did.
Yes.
When did you do this? I did.
Yeah.
Who did that? I did. And that speaks volume.
Yes.
It speaks volume. So you're absolutely right as far as marketing yourself. I remember when I wrote my first book, and I would pay for the Facebook weekly ad.
Yes.
You know, and I'm like, you know, sometimes it was $50 a week, sometimes it was like I got $20 this week, $10 this week. Anything helps because you're reaching more people than you would have on your own. So be willing to market yourself. Listen to this man right here. Okay, he's done it for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And most.
You made me feel so old when you just said that.
But Laterras, we right there by each other. So
I know.
I can't.
It is what
I can't, pounce on you. But you've done it flawlessly. And when I say flawlessly, is it continues to happen.
Yeah.
It continues not without failures.
Definitely not.
Not without struggle, not without challenges. But he's teaching you guys, if he can do this for 18 years, set yourself up for multiple streams. Think ahead of the game.
Yep.
Because capitalize on the moment.
Yes.
That's what I'm getting out of this pandemic. Capitalize on it. If you can bring something out and make a bunch of money, a bunch of connections in the next, 4 to 6 months or however long that we're going to be wearing masks, do it.
Yeah.
But while you're in that, already be thinking of something else. When this ends, I'm going to go ahead and launch this. Or I'm going to go ahead and launch it while this is going on. So you're winning simultaneously. It's happening all together. So I appreciate you for educating me, not just them, but educating me, for giving me your nuggets of wisdom. That's why it matters on your connections, y'all.
Always surround yourself around people that can impart in you and you can impart in them.
Right.
Because we're all on this journey together.
Right. And it's, you know what? The Bible calls it iron sharpening iron.
There it is.
So, and when we get on the phone, I'm telling you, we have some good conversations. Sometimes we're laughing and clowning, but you know, when he gets in the zone, I'm telling you, I'm taking advantage of it. So know your surroundings. Listen, EntrepreKNEWWHAT, every Tuesday this month, we're highlighting my boy, Laterras R, Whitfield. If you didn't get anything out of that, then you ain't trying to do nothing. You ain't trying to grow. You want to be stuck in your little cubicle. And let me say this, because my sister got on me one time. She said, you know, Zanya, stop pouncing on people
People that got 9 to 5.
who are okay with a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Because I would listen to them and I would ask them questions like, why do you want to be in a 9 to 5? Don't you want to grow?
Yeah, no.
Instead of you growing all the way to the CEO, you can own your own company. And she said some people aren't wired that way. Some people are okay with just being a director or just a manager of their department. And if that is you, I'm not downing you. But if you know that you want more and you were meant for something more, take this wisdom, the blueprint that was set out for you in this segment, and it will bless your life. Listen, Laterras, tell them one more time about your podcast, when it airs, and if they want to contact you, how can they do that?
I respond to all my messages on social media on IG, Laterras R Whitfield. My podcast is on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, just by searching Dear Future Wifey. There it is.
And when does it air?
Every Wednesday. There's a bunch of episodes up there for you to take a look at. We do lives. We also do just the regular episodes that launches. So just take a look at it and just engage with me.
All right. Thank you for joining us. As you know, if you are interested in being highlighted for the month as an entrepreneur, reach out to me. The information will be posted on my page, or you can see it below. Listen, we want to get your businesses out there. We want to highlight you. We want to help you. We want to support you and push you to your next level. EntrepreKNEWWHAT, every Tuesday we'll be re-airing this. For those of you who missed it, you can just log on and you can re-watch it. Next month we'll be having someone else different, but we just want to praise and appreciate Laterras R Whitfield. Thank you once again. We appreciate you. Thank you. Join us next week. As you know, tomorrow, what is it? It's Wednesday. What's the issue Wednesday? We have an amazing topic for you. We have another amazing guest, as you'll see tomorrow. And then, of course, on Thursdays, join us for Bible study. Listen, you guys have a great night. Thank you for joining me, and God bless you.
Get your brain. And if you got your act together, we can make it happen in any kind of weather. Cause I gotta make something out of nothing. I turn it into everything. Allow me to make a plain. Listen to what I say. The man in me. I've been down before, but now I'm UP. I've got the same body upgrade, mind, body, brains, and